Okay, good morning. Hopefully the sound comes across. I am sick and my voice is kind of shot, so hopefully you guys can hear me all right. Good morning. My name is Samantha Mirabal with Melco's application team, and we're doing our design shop talk today. And again, I apologize for my voice. I've been sick for the last several days, so anyhow, we're gonna, if you have questions while we're live, type them in the chat. If you see me looking off to the side, I have another monitor over there, so I'm keeping track of things to answer any questions that come in while we're live. I'll go ahead and get started with the questions that were sent in ahead of time, and we'll kind of just go from there. All right, let me go check and make sure both platforms are alive. There's Facebook and there's YouTube. Excellent. All right, so let's go ahead and get going with the questions that were sent in ahead of time. All right, so where do you find information if you want to print the manual? Okay, so you've got a few options for that. Over here, if you click on the question mark button, it will actually open the manual for you. Okay, and you can print that. So that's one option. Another would be to go to melco-service.com, and from here you'll see all of this stuff, right? The manuals are all under here. So let's say you want the operating system manual. You can go to your machine, and let's say you like using the advanced interface, so you'd have that manual. Or if you use the user interface, the one that's nice and pretty, then you click on that one. And those are the PDFs that you can open to be able to print. All right, so like I said, you can click on the question mark, it'll take you to the manual, or you can go get it over there. Oh, excuse me. All right, what other questions do we have? I print most of my designs for correct placement. When I use Stahl's letters that I insert from another file, they don't print. I don't know what Stahl's files you're referring to. If you're putting JPEGs into the file, they're not going to print. They've got to be a vector or an actual stitch file. So like DST, I don't know, EXP, those sorts of files. If you're inserting JPEGs, those aren't going to work. So it'll print vectors, or it will print any of the stitch files that you have. So, but I'm not familiar with Stahl's letters, so I can't help. But I know it won't print the JPEGs for you. So if that's the issue, that might be it. Let's see, what other questions do we have? Tips for design. So we did that. All right. Tips for designing a simulated chenille letter using Burmalana thick thread. Using a Burmalana thread. Okay. So if you go look on the Melco service site, so where did that go? Oh, I closed it. Of course I did. All right. So if you click on this, click on the FAQ micro. I think if I just search for micro, it will show up right there. Micro chenille. All right. So this actually talks about how to digitize everything, all the settings you would use, stitch angles, all of that to create a sample, or to create those faux chenilles using Burmalana. Down here are actually sample designs that you can open up. So there's the ST3, so that's the style that will do a lot of these settings for you that you can apply. Or down here, there's a sample design so that you can look at and study how it was done. All right. There's also a video all about micro chenille, and let's see, yeah, and then the teddy bear test design. All right, so there's that. Another way you can do it if you're not going to use Burmalana, I went over on a DesignShop Talk, oops, come back, yeah, on 8/11. So the 8/11 DesignShop Talk, I spent quite a bit of time talking about Burmalana, not Burmalana, but micro chenille using polyester and puff. So that is another option that you have. But Burmalana, when you're using that, it's really going to be about making longer stitch lengths, and there are some styles that you put over it to make it do that faux chenille look to it. So take a look at those videos. Let us know if those help. Regarding this, he said, what tie-in and tie-out settings when stitching lettering? How do you make sure each letter ties off? So that's all in the settings, right? So ties stitches. All right. So if I go into the properties of this tab here is going to govern whether you have tie-ins or tie-outs. Okay. So style 1 or style 5 are my two favorites. They're lock stitches. I don't personally use 2, 3, or 4 ever. But style 1 is a nice lock stitch. It's embedded within the stitch. The style 5 is a big X. And that, while extremely secure and which is nice, it also tends to be very visible with some fonts. All right. So making sure you have your tie-ins turned on, that's step 1. The tie-in is the stitches that it makes when your machine starts running, while it goes. Your tie-off are the last few stitches it makes before it cuts the thread. Okay, so that's what these tie-in and tie-offs are. The auto trim is what that number right here is what's determining how is it deciding whether it trims or if it leaves a little connector stitch. Okay, so if I make this number really big, I'm going to make it like a big. All right, so there you go. So you see there's a connector stitch right there. Like I said, what is telling it to either put a lock stitch and trim or to just keep sewing is right here. If where one letter ends, which is where that red X is, to where the next letter starts, if that is smaller than whatever number this is, it's going to leave the connector, like you see here, leave that piece of thread and keep sewing. Now notice it did not do a lock stitch right there because only when necessary. It's assuming you're going to leave that thread there. So yeah, if you leave that thread and then come back with scissors and cut it out, this I is going to be at risk, right? So you can change that to say always and things like that, where it's automatically doing it. But let's say you make that 20. Notice there's a lock stitch. And that again is saying where one letter ends to where the next one starts. If that's bigger than 20, it will do a trim. If it's less than, it'll carry the connector stitch. Okay, so it's really just about making sure this number is set. So I did it per letter because I had the letter selected. So you can see right here, these are at 100. So you have all those connector stitches, which is not a pretty thing, right? Okay, so that's how you change your tie-ins. Basically make sure they're always there. What else do we have? Is there a function in DesignShop to follow the contour of an object? Yeah, you can use the primer stitch. So let's take a look at that. That's what I use it a lot for. Where's DesignShop? There we go. I guess we can use this. So object, generate primer. Click this down and let's say you want a 20 offset. And it kind of follows along your shape there. Okay. If you don't want that to be a fill, that's okay. You can delete this. And now I've got one shape there instead of two. Right here I can say change element from one type to another, and then I can say, well, make that a bean stitch and replace it, or make it a single line center and replace it, whatever you're going to do. So you can always change it to be something else or add, things like that. So yeah, you can absolutely use the primer stitch for contouring. In fact, I do it a lot for creating key fobs and things like that. What else do we have? Is there a stem stitch? Is there a stem stitch for a running stitch? Okay, so if you're not familiar with what a stem stitch is, I just want to show that first. It's this. It's something that is done mostly by hand, where when you're doing your hand stitching, it's literally done like this. You have a stitch here, your thread's coming out, you come back down and up, and you just keep on working your way down, so your stitches are all kind of staggered like that. Okay, so what do we have? All right, so the stem stitch, sorry. Stuff popped up, completely distracted me. So there's a few ways you can do it. If you click on the walk, it's not a walking stitch, it's actually a decorative. And down here, you'll see that there is a stem stitch. See that? So decorative stem. And if you click, draw it 3D. There you go. Or if I turn off the 3D, you can see it's staggering the stitches like that. So I know when I use this, I like a larger stagger myself. So, because I like it to look really more like a stem stitch. So more like this. It's a personal preference. So you can create your own decoratives, right? So I just decided how I was going to make my decorative right here. And created that as a manual stitch. So to show you how, I just moved it. So I decided where I wanted my stitches to go right here. Where my start, remember decoratives, your start and stop have to be on the same line. So these are just vectors I drew so I could create it. So I'm going to start there, come down. I want more than one stitch so it's wider. So there's 3 stitches, and then I'm going to come back up and end here. Enter. And let's go properties, turn all this off because when you're creating your decoratives, it's not necessary. Yeah. So from that thing, you can then take it, right click, go to save custom shape. I always overwrite the same file until I like it. So I'm going to call that one test. Do I want to replace it? Yes. Cool. Then again, go to a walk stitch, change it to test. And if it ends up being what I like, then I go, okay, I like that one. So again, I'm going to select my manual stitch, right click, save custom stitch, save it as a decorative, and now there you have one. Okay, so you can create your own if the one built into the software isn't to your liking. This one sews really nice. Yeah, so those are kind of your 2 ways to do it. Create your own. Hi, Karitza, thanks for joining today. Yeah. All right, what other questions do we have? Where is my, there we go. All right, so that would create your stem stitch. And you'll notice all the different fibers here because that's done with an embroidery floss, which has a bunch of them. So that's another reason I was going back and forth, is to make it thicker that way. If I get a logo digitized straight, is there a way to arch it after you've gotten it back? Yeah. So my knee-jerk reaction is to say no, don't do that, because it's not a wise idea. You want to digitize it as a curve. With that said, let me show you a feature, because technically, yes, you can arch things. Particularly if it's an EXP or DST or an expanded format, I would not do this. If it's an OFM, okay, play with it. I'm going to go open a file. Let's see, C drive, designs, legacy, I don't know. This one's not going to stretch well or shape well, but I'll show it to you. All right, if I take the whole thing, I can go object, transform outline. So see these 2 lines that come over there? You can add points to them. And if I hold that point, hold the control key. Oh, it's not going to do it for this one? Why not? That's a bummer. I guess this design doesn't like it. That's annoying. It usually works for most designs. And I don't want to think about it too hard of why it's not working, so let's just do something else. Alright, object, transform outline, add a point. See how it shapes? So if I hold control key and move it up. So you can transform this around by moving these things, and it will adjust your wireframe. See that? So yes, you can, kind of, but in most practical things, no, you're going to need to digitize it to be around a curve if that's how you want it. You got to create the art, do the digitizing so it works. If it's an OFM file, this transform is actually kind of handy for some things, particularly if you're trying to just slightly manipulate stuff. For instance, I had a customer send me a picture of it was a picture of their logo printed. They didn't have the logo itself, okay, but it was at an angle. So I digitized the skewed logo and then just used the transform to kind of skew it back to fix the shape. It worked well enough. All right. What else do we have? Oh, all right. So I think I covered all the questions that were sent in ahead of time. If you have any, let me quick go look on the platform, see if any were typed in. We're a quiet crowd today. That's cool. I know it's starting to get cold. All right, for this Florida girl, it's getting cold down here. We've had a few evenings super cold. I think that's why I'm sick. But, temperatures go from 80 to, 80 to 60. So, yay. Anything under 70 is cold for me. All right. Excuse me. All right, everyone. Yeah, I hate the cold too, John. But that's why I live in Florida. All right, you guys. I am planning on next Friday. So next Friday we'll have our next Design Shop Talk. Hopefully my voice sounds better and I'm not so gross. Arizona. Oh, desert. So it's cold at night. Ooh. All right. So I'll be back next Friday and we'll kind of take it from there. Let us know what you want to learn about, and we will try to incorporate those. When you have questions, type them in when you see in social media. I'll post this little picture so you can add your questions there. That's how I get them ahead of time. If you have something that I need to prep for. Okay. All right, everyone. Have a fantastic weekend. I will talk to you next week.